Hello everyone, in today's video I want to return to fantasy dioramas and build this object from the world of The Witcher. What will I end up with? Let's find out. I cut out the required piece of foam. To maintain scale, I use a 1/72 figure. Armed with a pencil, I marked the gates and started cutting them out. Essentially, I need to cut away all the excess foam and leave only the shape for my gates. Even in the game, this tower is about 40% stone. The rest is wood that the Baron's bandits added to the tower later. For now, after removing the excess, I got this result. Now, with another modeling knife, I'll start making the bricks. This is probably one of the most tedious tasks I've done while creating this diorama, but unfortunately I don't see any other way to make brickwork. For example, constructing this building from tiny bricks will be quite a task. Plus I don't have a good mold to cast bricks in 1/72 scale, so I have to settle for brickwork of this quality. Fortunately, since my diorama is meant to simulate an old building, this brickwork look quite good. Now I'll speed up the process so you don't get bored. You can now see the accelerated process of creating the brickwork on the rest of the gates. After that, flipping my modeling knife, I add some space between the bricks, so they don't look stuck together and have a more individual shape. I also press the edges of the bricks a bit to give them different forms. It's very important to define the texture of the bricks at this stage, as it will simplify the painting process later. You can also use crumpled foil or real rock to shape the foam brick wall, but I thought this result would be enough for my diorama. You might have noticed that I removed some bricks from the brickwork. I did this to show how old this building is. Overall, I'm happy with the result. I'll never manage to make such good bricks, and I never thought foam would be so suitable for this purpose, especially for 1/72 scale. As you even see, I also cut out 2 additional parts, and this is how my tower looks for now. Off camera, I'll apply the brickwork to the remaining parts of the tower. And for now, I need to cut out some wooden parts and glue them to the main diorama. Actually, not the diorama, but one of these main elements. The diorama itself will take a long time to complete, so I hope to finish it in 6 months. For now, I am using thick bamboo skewers to make locks, which I will use to attach the wooden floor. Marking the required size with a pencil, I cut away the excess and keep only what I need. Now I can start cutting the thin wooden panel into small boards. As I'll say it hundreds of times, this wooden panel creates an excellent imitation of wooden boards for your diorama. And in my case, I'll use these wooden boards for the floors in my tower. Again, I'll speed up this process as well, as there is nothing complicated or unique here. I'm simply gluing these boards without following any specific rules. But, of course, I don't glue them straight, because the more chaotic the placement of these boards, the more interesting they will look on the diorama. Then I cut some small beams from bamboo skewer to glue underneath the floor, so it doesn't look like it's floating in the air. After that, I did the same on the other side of the tower. As you may have noticed, the floor in my tower isn't fully glued, so I'm creating long wooden shields and gluing them slightly differently on the remaining parts of the tower. As you can see, this creates an extra interest, as it looks unusual. And now I'm finishing this and moving on to creating the floor for the second level of the tower. Here, it's very simple. I glued several bamboo skewers together and glue boards made from the wooden panel on top of these skewers. Then I made a kind of frame from bamboo skewers. I plan to glue boards to this frame to create the base of the tower. Unfortunately, I can't describe this part of the tower with medieval terms. So, using the boards, I'll start in giving this wooden box a nice appearance. Some boards were glued vertically, and longer, wider boards were glued horizontally. And as you can see, I decided to leave a few windows, because in the game this tower had windows, and some of them were open. But for now I won't make the window shutter and will focus on creating the roof for the tower. Here I again create a frame from bamboo skewers and started gluing wooden boards made from the wooden panel to this frame. I tried to make the roof varied, so that it would look interesting from all sides, and at the same time not be too strange. So let's move on to the result of this work. Yes, on one side of the tower I decided to create a wooden shingle effect, as in some places my tower looks too broken. I think the wooden shingles look quite good. I didn't plan to cover the entire roof with them, I'm just testing it. In the future I'll need to create a whole huge building with such shingles, so I wanted to see in advance how difficult and time-consuming it would be to make such a roof. Overall, it turned out quite well, but I felt that some parts of my roof looked a bit empty and lacked detail, so I decided to add a few more wooden boards to the roof to create a repair effect. Of course, the Baron's bandits are not carpenters and couldn't do serious repairs, but they tried to repair this roof somehow. And here is what I got after adding a few details to my roof. I can say that I like how it looks. Maybe in the future I can add some small details, but for now I am satisfied with the result. With this, we can say that the main details of the tower are ready. Now it's time to focus on the staircase. I decided to make the staircase out of the same foam, but to make it somewhat broken, so that it really looks old and somewhat abandoned. But actually, there is nothing complicated about making this staircase. After this, I don't see nothing complicated about making this staircase. I do all the same action as with the foam part of the tower. And this is how my staircase turned out. I am actually satisfied with the result. I might add something in the future, or on the contrary, make it more damaged. But for now, I am quite happy with what I have. To avoid showing you the same action, I made a wooden canopy for my staircase off camera and already glued the staircase to the tower. Now I need to glue the wooden canopy to the staircase and of course to the tower. After the wooden canopy was glued in place, I made this kind of guard. The Baron's bandits used it to prevent themselves from falling off the staircase. As you might have noticed, off camera I added many missing details. I made wooden gates as well as wooden shields, using to cover the tower's window. I didn't show how I made these elements because I already demonstrated the process of making such gates several times on my channel. If you are very interested in seeing how I make these gates, you can watch the video titled "At the Warehouse." In that video I explained in detail how to create such wooden gates, and as I mentioned before, I didn't want to repeat the process again in this video, so let's move on. This means it's time for painting. First, as always, I need to prime our model. Great! Now the tower looks much more attractive. But it will look even better once we fully painted it. To start, I decided to paint the bricks. For this, I rummaged through my painting box to find a suitable color. And I thought the flash shadow color would be perfect for simulating the right bricks. So, choosing this color, I started painting all the brick elements on this diorama. And believe me, I spent a huge amount of time on this, since the object is quite large. Here is how our tower looks after the bricks were painted the desired color. I think the bricks don't even need a wash, everything looks just great. There are still a few accents to add, some lighting areas and a few colors for variety. For example, I'll mix it a lighter color and highlighted some bricks across the entire tower to make the brickwork more variety and visually interesting. Of course, in the future, these bricks can be detailed further, such as by adding effect of dirt and moss. But it's not logical to do that now, since these gates are just part of a larger diorama, as I mentioned earlier. Well, while I was talking, the work on the bricks was completed, and now I need to focus on painting the wooden parts of the gates. First, I mixed chocolate brown paint with water and used it to color all the wooden parts as a base color. Painting the wooden parts on this type of building is quite straightforward. As I mentioned earlier, I used the chocolate brown for the base color. After that, I painted the entire structure with the second color, using a dry brushing technique. For the second color, I used German pale brown. This combination of color gives a wonderful result. The wood looks old, worn, and conveys the atmosphere I was aiming for. And of course this wood looks like natural wood, because for this object I don't need painted wood. However, in some places I work on the edges of the elements with an even lighter color. This way I give more depth to the details. The more textured your details, the better your diorama looks overall. But I decided that it wasn't worth spending too much time on this technique, as these gates will be refined later. For now I can say that the wooden parts look quite good. But now I need to paint the iron parts of the gates with a rust color, since, as I mentioned earlier, the Baron's bandits don't pay much attention to the upkeep of the fortress. The hinges that hold the gates are painted rust color, as well as the special staples that are used to close the gate. People simply place a thick lock into these staples, and the gate cannot be opened from either side, until you remove this lock or until you tear down the gates. It can be said that the work on the tower is complete, but it's not over yet, as we need to add a few extra details to fill out our objects. The first detail will be a wooden ladder that people use to climb to the second floor of the tower. I am making this ladder from balsa wood. I cut it into the required shape and glued them together with super glue. As a result, I have this wonderful ladder. It fits perfectly into the tower's interior and matches the 1/72 scale perfectly. Next, I assembled several oars, as well as where this castle is located is an area with plenty of rivers and lakes. Therefore, people here often engage in fishing, so fishing gear should be scattered around. I also made the boat oars from balsa wood, and here is what I ended up with. It looks quite good. Next, using a modeling knife and a bamboo stick, I worked on shaping the bamboo stick into a torch, which I plan to place somewhere on the tower. I also detailed the protective gates further. I needed to make these cells smaller, because their current size is too large, and people could easily pass through them. Then I decided to add another interesting detail. I thought that the castle named Perch couldn't do without a bird's nest. In fact, I want to create quite a few of them. I made 3D models of small birds and plan to print them on the 3D printer. I believe these details will be a wonderful addition to our diorama and to the larger diorama in the future. This nest I made from a regular plumbing jig, twisted into something resembling a donut, which I secured with super glue. Also, off camera, I made special hanging braziers, used for lighting the area. And when all the details were completed, I began painting them. Naturally, all these details are wooden, and the base color for painting them was chocolate brown. Then I simply used German pale brown paint and the dry brushing technique, and after everything dried, I placed all the details in their perspective places. And here is what I ended up with. Perhaps I am praising myself, but I am just thrilled with this building. You know, for me it's like a breath of fresh air after such a huge amount of World War II themed dioramas. Firstly, the Witcher universe is very dear to me. I'll read the books about 7 times, played the Witcher games several times, completing the third part only once, but the first part about 5 or 6 times. So when I reinstalled the third Witcher game and played it, I thought it would be a great idea to create a medieval tower, or rather a fantasy diorama set in the Witcher universe. And I think I made the right decision because this diorama turned out to be simply amazing. The only thing it's missing is figures, but we'll work on the figures later, as they require additional conversation, and for that I need to print some elements on a 3D printer, since I don't have a 3D printer, which requires some time. So, for now, we're satisfied with what we have. This has been, as always, No Quality. Give this video a thumb up, subscribe to the channel, share this video with your friends, and also participate in my poll. With that, I bid you farewell. See you soon and goodbye.